Well, we're here today with Phil Hawkins. Phil, welcome to Los Cerritos Community News.
Good afternoon.
Member of the Central Basin Water Board.
Yes.
So tell us real quick about, even though we know about you here at Los Cerritos Community News, why don't you tell us about yourself?
Okay. My name is Phil Hawkins. I'm in Central Basin Municipal Water District, Division 5.
Okay.
We have 5 divisions at Central Basin. I've been there, this is my 12th year right now.
Okay.
So we've been there, we've gone through a lot of changes there. Before that, I was a assemblyman here in the 56th Assembly District, which included Cerritos and Artesia, Bellflower, Lakewood, the whole area there. And then when I left the assembly, the governor appointed me to be a director of trade and commerce. So I was director of trade and commerce for 2 years, and then I went to the water board.
And you're a longtime resident of Cerritos.
Since 1979.
79.
Yes, and before that, I grew up in Bellflower. I even went to the grade school and the high school and everything in Bellflower.
And tell us more about your family.
Family, I've got 2 children, a boy and a girl, Philip Jr., and he's with the Realtors, and my daughter is Sheila, and she does work for a medical association with doing events.
Grandkids?
5.
5 grandkids.
5 grandkids.
Wow.
Their ages are 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8.
Holy smokes.
Is anyone doing this year?
Anyone
No,
done this year?
They said they're all done.
They're all done.
But it was my daughter, my son,
Organized.
my daughter, my son, so they just rotated till we had 5 kids there.
Tell us what the water district is.
Tell us what the water district is.
The water district.
Water District 101.
Okay, the water district, I'm going to use the name, Central Basin Municipal Water District. Central Basin. Central Basin is, think of it from Long Beach to the San Gabriel Mountains, from Orange County to Carson. We don't include Carson or Compton. That's kind of our district. It amounts to 24 cities, and I think it's 3 county districts. 27 keeps coming up as the number, so I think that's the way it works. 3 county districts and 24 cities. And that is Central Basin's service area. We have about 2.5 million people, about 2.5 million people we serve.
And your district is what cities?
Okay, mine is Cerritos, Artesia, Bellflower, Paramount, Lakewood, Hawaiian Gardens, and Signal Hill.
Okay.
Now, what does the district actually do? What's its purpose?
We are the ones, okay, if a city needs water, when they need, each year the cities needs a certain amount of water. We are the agency they ask to order that amount of water, because we are a member of Metropolitan Water District. So the city, let's say the city of Cerritos, they need a million acre feet of water.
Okay.
That's way too high, 100,000 acre feet of water. Then they would turn that order into us, and then we would in turn order it from Metropolitan. Then that way we keep a calculation of everybody that has ordered water, how much water goes in the basin, and how much is used and left there, and that we kind of do the water calculations on all that.
What is your relationship to West Basin?
They're a separate agency now. 5 years ago, or approximately 5 years ago, we were a joint agency. 5 years ago, we split up, and that wasn't Central Basin's decision, that was West Basin. They kind of thought they were too big to be with us. They thought we were too small, so they wanted to be on their own. So about 5 years ago, we split from West Basin. There's 2 separate basins. The names come from the groundwater underneath and the area. They have a basin where they store water underneath, and there is a basin underneath us where the water goes also. So that's why there's 2 separate basins. In some cases, we join together, in some cases we don't, but that's and same with Orange County. They have their own basin of water that's underneath them, just like we do.
Are you the current chairman of the board?
No,
Okay.
Ed Vasquez is the current chairman.
Talk about some of the major issues facing the Central Basin Water Board right now.
Central Basin major issues, a lot of it's water conservation. Now, we just did a recycled water line. There is a law that was put in quite a few years back, that by the year 2020, that we have to conserve 20% of our water. We have to, it's mandatory that we have that conservation in place by that year. And so that's what we're working for now. That's why we're putting these recycled water lines in. That's why we're doing the low-flow toilets, the shower heads, the landscaping. We're doing what they call native landscaping. We do that sort of thing now because we're headed for this. And if we don't make that 2020 and we haven't conserved, some of the cities won't be able to get grants or bonds, so and we won't. So it's one of those that we have to start planning for this now, because it's not something you're going to do this in 1 or 2 years. It takes a long time to prepare for this, and that's kind of where we're coming from now. Is we're watching that conservation program, and and that's why we did this last conservation program, which is the recycled water.
You have a pretty big reclamation plant, don't you?
No, we don't.
No?
No, we're only into recycled water and potable water.
Okay.
That's West Basin.
Oh, okay.
West Basin has a huge plant down there for that.
It is
And,
LA County.
yeah.
LA County.
LA County provides the recycled water to its power projects.
Right.
And actually, the voice you hear in the background is Art Aguilar, the general manager
Sorry.
of the Central Basin Water District. Thanks for that. I appreciate that. So let's talk about the campaign. How's the campaign going?
I think it's going pretty good. It's one of those. It's a little early still. I've got my signs out. It's just one of those getting all your volunteers together and getting your signs out and getting your word out that you are running again. See, we did move our election from November to June. This is the first time we've ever had a June election. And the reason we did that is we did some calculations. We looked at the past. We have three board members are up for election at this particular time. Well, we looked at those numbers, the way the county figures what it costs you to run. We spent about $500,000 on our last presidential election, but yet in our off-year elections, we were spending $200,000. So that's why we felt if we could get away from the presidential and go to the June, we would save the district $200,000 to $300,000 just in the election, because it goes by the number of votes that are cast in that particular election. And an off-year election typically is a lot less in voter turnout than it is in a November turnout.
Is
So
this the first off-year?
first one.
First one.
We just changed it in December. The county
Okay.
supervisors thought it was a good idea too, and they changed it for us.
What are some of the other issues facing the district right now?
Well, we have several. One of them has to do with storage. We're trying to set up a storage program to store water underneath the Central Basin. Underneath Central Basin, we have one of the most beautiful, perfect aquifers you could ever imagine. In fact, our water is so good, Coca-Cola moved to Downey just to put a well in to use the water directly from our aquifer put in Coca-Cola. It's that good. At this point, we take things out of the water, microorganisms and purity. We take things so small out of the water, the only way you can measure them is in time. It's like taking 1 second out of 35 years. That's how small it is.
Wow.
So that's how good our water is. And am I talking to the public here?
You're talking to the voters.
The voters. That's why you shouldn't be buying bottled water. You don't need bottled water in this district. Your water is as pure as you can get it. And in most cases, our water out of the tap is better than some of your bottled water. So that's just my little pitch on use your tap water. You don't need to spend the money on all that.
Do you have any problem at all with salt water coming in? Or is that just West
That's
Basin?
West Basin. West Basin has an area where it's called brackish water. They overpumped and they let the salt water come into one of their aquifers, and they're still trying to clean that up. We don't have that over here because we don't touch the ocean
Oh, that's good.
in this area. Long Beach is our buffer for that.
What about the politics of water? I mean, is
There's
there
more politics in water than there is in Sacramento.
Is that what it is? Exactly. Are there too many politicians involved in making decisions for water boards, or the way the water districts are done, or they should just be left alone and let you guys do it, or?
Yes to all the above. In a lot of cases, there's too many politics, and the problem with California in general is some of our water laws are not very good, and in some cases, they don't even exist. And that's why we've had to actually get some lawyers, do some lawsuits to establish water law that is not there. It's not as though we're interpreting it, it's not as though anybody's violating it, it's just not there. So that's why we've had to do some lawsuits to establish those rules or those regulations or those laws, just to get them in place.
How will the, let me see if I can phrase this right. They're talking now about building, quote, a peripheral canal.
Yes.
Okay. Is that going to be necessary to continue to bring water from Northern California? 'Cause if there's an earthquake, the delta is gone,
Yes, yes.
and so are the fisheries, I assume.
Okay. That's called the Bay Delta Project now.
Yeah.
That's the way the South describes it. The North doesn't describe it that way. Well, we call it the Bay Delta Project. Part of the problem is our water from Shasta, from Oroville, goes in the Sacramento River.
Yeah.
When it comes to the Bay Delta, we're supposed to pick it up and put it in our system. Sacramento hijacks our water, and a lot of that goes out to the ocean. And that's why we need the peripheral canal, so that we would be able to hook up to that and get the water that we actually put in the river.
That would affect both the Central Valley Aqueduct as well as...
Everything
State.
south, it would
Yeah.
affect everything south, yes.
So you have two pumping plants, right? Pump from the
There's two
Delta.
now, we should add another one. There's 3 systems that are not approved, but they want it. One of them is to put a huge pipe around the Bay Delta and come in at the bottom, at the top of our aquifer at the bottom of the peripheral canal. There's another one that would hook into 2 rivers and then come across, and that would hook in. And then another one is they want to put a 45-mile tunnel underneath Bay Delta and use it like a bathtub. And the reason for that is it won't affect the wildlife, it won't affect the fish, any of the game, the birds or...
Is there any decision?
No, it all
They're still
depends on the
debating?
bond. So now, if we have a water bond, the dollar amount will determine. The one underneath is the most expensive. The one going around is the next expensive. The one going through the middle is probably the least
How does
expensive.
Northern California feel about this?
They don't like any part of it. They don't like it, because they say Southern California is stealing their water. That's the way they look at it. Even though we bought and paid for it many, many years ago, they say that we're stealing their water. And a lot of this is environmental. There's a thing called the Bay Delta smelt.
Right.
It's a little tiny fish, silver in color, and you can almost see through it in the light. It's the only place it grows
Are
to.
those the ones that are sucked through the pumps?
And that's what they get into our pumps, and that's part of it. And what happens is when we turn the pumps on, it stirs up the water. The water stirs up, that's the food. So then these little fish all come for the food, and then they wind up in the pumps. So that's why we're trying to build filters or barriers or different things around it, and we've been pretty good at that. We've cut it down about 90% of what it was before. And that's actually the state's doing that.
Do you think one of these water diversion projects will eventually go through?
That's what we're hoping. It all goes back to money. They want $9 billion to $12 billion to put this all together. And then you hit on a very important subject here, is the earthquake. There are 12 earthquake faults go through the Bay Delta. I have a little video that you might want to see. It's an animation, and it shows if we have a 6.5 earthquake, how everything starts collapsing. Now, we've had them before, and we had a little bit of damage, but now everything is deteriorated to a point where a 6.5 now, they say, would collapse all of our levees.
Well, the delta consists of islands
Yes.
that are below water,
Yes,
the water line, and they're protected by these earth dikes,
yes.
which many of them were built how many years ago?
Over 100.
And they're slowly sinking in.
Yes, and okay, what happened 100 years ago is the farmers wanted more farmland. So they took their tractors and they pushed all these levees up. They were never engineered, they were never certified, it was 100, and it worked. Well, as time's gone by, these have all faded now. The same farmers aren't pushing that earth back up there to hold all this, so they keep deteriorating. If we was having an earthquake, it would just tear down these levees that are not engineered. And that's what the water bond is. Part of that is to build these levees back in a proper fashion, as well as do the.
This would be a state bond, wouldn't it?
It's a state bond. It was supposed to be on this year's ballot, and it's not going to be. It was supposed to be on the last presidential election, and it wasn't. So we don't know when it's gonna come out, because they don't want it to fail, so they wanna make sure there's something that can pass when they do put it on.
Let's get back real quick to your campaign.
Okay.
You're running against two individuals, Jay Gray from Cerritos and Assemblyman Tony Mendoza. What do you think of the campaign so far?
So far, there really hasn't been much activity. It's been very, very quiet on all sides, as far as I know. I'm the only one that even has any signs out right now. I've heard from any of the others.
Were you surprised that Assemblyman Mendoza decided to get into the race?
Yes, very. For a
Why?
couple of reasons. Well, one of them is he's an assemblyman that is seated right now. If he wins this election, he has to resign from the assembly. And he's already announced that he's going to run for Senate in 2 years. And if he wins that one, he has to resign from the water board to run to take his Senate seat. So it's like, I don't see where that benefits the taxpayers or the voters in this area to have all these elections and all these resigning of offices to get to where he wants to go. I've been there 10 years, 12 years almost now. It's taken me that to get to be effective in the water district. And what he's gonna do in 2 years, I really don't know what he expects to accomplish in a 2-year period. So that's why I was so surprised that he was even interested in something like this.
Is he your only candidate?
Jay Gray's.
No, there's another, yeah. I heard he's a kid, a very young person. I don't know him, I haven't seen him or anything. He even described himself